Hi Mahendra, welcome to Conversation on Big Cats. You know, everyone, Mahendra and I have been friends for almost 20 years now. We met long time ago in Nepal and we shared this common passion for big cat conservation. Mahendra's been doing all sorts of really exciting work in the past 20 years and he's now at the Smithsonian Institute. So Mahendra, over to you. Tell us what you do and tell us about your work.
Well, thank you very much, Latika, for doing this and getting us together, at this challenging time. And, just briefly about me, I have worked, I started my career in Nepal working for the government there. I started with the Forest Department and then switched to Department of National Parks and Wildlife Conservation. And I have managed some of the national parks over there. And definitely, my passion was on the, large mammals and then, again, focused on tigers. And in Nepal, I was much more interested on the landscape issues, since large mammals like tiger, elephants, or rhino, they move along the, landscape. And also it requires a huge land base, for its ecological requirements. And later on, as I was pursuing my PhD and then, went back to Nepal and then I got a job opportunity here in the United States, like in Washington, D.C. I joined Save the Tiger Fund and I started supporting field activities, in the field in all the tiger range countries. And again, we're happy, Latika, you are one of the grantees, from the Save the Tiger Fund, for your PhD research. So this, support to the local capacity building and bringing and equipping the government in protected area management and also the international collaborations, that was my passion. So slowly and gradually that, push really came about in 2006, when all the concerned people came together to assess the status of tigers. And then the status report, suggested that we need to reach out to some of the big international organizations, that influence the tiger habitats, like the World Bank, ADB, and others. So gradually, since the Save the Tiger Fund had, pursued this and with a grant to big organizations like WWF, WCS, and we collaborated with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Smithsonian Institution at that time. And then we started reaching out to the World Bank at that time in 2006. And gradually, we got some interest in the World Bank and, they launched the Global Tiger Initiative at that time. So that, because our major concern was the habitat, the level of habitat loss that we were seeing at that time because of the infrastructure and other development activities. So it was the right time to influence the World Bank and with the launch of the Global Tiger Initiative and its influence globally and the tiger range countries politically and with the economical activities. And I think that achieved a lot, during that time. So with the commitment of this, with the commitment that was generated, from the Tiger Summit in 2010, I think that put a very successful conservation measures in tigers. So, from that on, I think, some of the countries has taken it seriously. It has, achieved a lot, with additional support that they generated internally and internationally. But again, some of the countries that lag behind, which we need to really bring, forward. So what I see, I would present, present in my, talk, how things have gone forward and where things stand right now. And again, the status and then, what do we need to do moving forward? Because, what I see is, the level of commitment is lagging behind right now, with different issues. So that's my story now.
Fantastic. Lovely. So we look forward to the presentation. And I remember taking part in one of the GTI
yes.
conferences. I was a keynote speaker in one of those. So that was, yes, it changed tiger conservation history, that movement, I think. It's
right.
been phenomenal. Okay, over to you, and we look forward to your presentation.
All right, let me begin with like a little bit of context. Like, although tiger is a religious and a cultural icon in many of the Asian countries, but again, it has losing ground in terms of the habitat loss and also the population size, that is declining. For example, tiger population, declined from over 100,000 to under 3,200 in 2010, within a time period of 100 years. And again, I'm giving you an old data here, but things have changed, which we still need to work and assess, while we prepare for the next year of the tiger in 2022. But the data that we worked together in 2006, 93% of the historical range of the tiger habitat was lost, and only 7% was remaining. But again, the major threat, to the tiger population was habitat loss due to various activities, including conversion of land and also the poaching. And tiger, because of various threats, has become a conservation dependent species. If we do not, if it doesn't have any conservation added activities, then it will start losing ground, and the population will continue to decline. And unfortunately, the illegal trade and market demand is persistent. And then, despite all the efforts that all the organizations and governments are putting together, there is some loopholes, that is enforcing to continue this illegal trade and demand. And just historical, there used to be 9 subspecies that used to occur, but now we have only 5 of the original species remaining in certain pockets. Like you see in this map, the yellow represents the historical habitat, the green patches, that is the only habitat remaining. And among these green patches, there are only pockets of protected habitat, that are the epicenter of the tiger population. But the good news is there is still 1.1 million square kilometer habitat remaining. And if we put the necessary efforts, there is still a possibility to recover the tiger population. And the major challenge that I see is tiger has to be turned into a living wild asset rather than the economic liability. And without the support from the local community, it is very, very difficult, if not impossible, to conserve tiger and revive tiger population. Yeah, because they are the one, who are living with tigers and in the habitat 24/7. And also, with the tourism activities and others, there has to be some benefit driving to the local community so that they can see the value of the conservation. It's not only the tiger, but all kinds of species, there has to be some value, that the local people need to see, that is linked to their livelihood. And I would like to bring you back to what happened, during 2010 Tiger Summit. As I mentioned you earlier a little bit, how it began, starting in 2006. Various activities international collaboration, like Asian minister meeting and country level meeting, and the bilateral, regional, and international cooperation that began, with the Global Tiger Initiative that many of us collaborated with the World Bank in launching this and also pushing the agenda forward on this. And, this really brought new commitments and resources. The political commitment that came out from the 2010 Tiger Summit in Russia with the head of the state from 5 countries, tiger range countries, and also the international organization that really brought about the the summit, and also the commitment that it brought about in adding new resources, and also the policy formulation that is required, and also it also brought about the the NTRP, like the National Tiger Conservation Recovery Priorities for each country, that really spell out the steps that they need to take to recover the tiger population in their country, and also what the other global community has to do in supporting these efforts. And all this St. Petersburg declaration that really spell out what each of the government has to do, and also the commitment that it brought about to double the tiger population by the next year of the tiger in 2022. Definitely during that time, many of the organizations, felt that it was a big commitment, but at the same time, committing this level of, efforts, and also bringing some of the changes, positive changes in the tiger population recovery, and I think that itself would mean a lot. And bringing back you to the current wild tiger population estimates, based on all the reports that we are getting from the tiger range countries, definitely the tiger range countries in South Asia, like Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal, and Russia, they have brought about a significant changes in the tiger population recovery in their country. And for example, in case of India, like in 2010 or before, the population estimate was about 1,700, but now it's close to 3,000 itself. More than 70% of the wild tiger population globally, India has them. So, and likewise in Russia, Nepal, and Bhutan, and Bangladesh, they are at least maintaining the population or increasing the population. In some of the countries, they are achieving the target that they had set in doubling the tiger population. Unfortunately, the many countries in Southeast Asia, they are lagging behind much more. For example, in Malaysia, at one point, and because again, when I was working in the Save the Tiger Fund, I also supported, drafting the Tiger Conservation Action Plan in each of the countries so that they spell out, and that really helped out to draft the National Tiger Recovery Program in each country. So, at that time, Malaysia had estimated that they had, 500 tigers, and they were estimating to double it to 1,000 tigers. But now, at the current stage, that what my colleagues are sharing with me, from Malaysia, is they have less than 200 tigers, which is a real dire situation. And most of the instances, they have, the killing of tigers, and many of the poachers, they are coming from the, up north, Cambodia and Vietnam. They say that people are coming all the way from north to, Malaysia, to trap tigers, and just because there is persistent market demand for tiger parts and products. And I also remember supporting a study in while I was at the Save the Tiger Fund, probably it was 2007 or 8. We were surveying some big cities in China, Beijing, and others, whether the people who are really looking forward to using the tiger parts and products, whether they would be satisfied from any products from captive breeding facility, or they would like to see, get the parts from the wild. Majority of them, they prefer the products from the wild. So despite the theory that they have, they want to flood the market with the captive population, that simply doesn't work, because the public demand is from the wild, not from the captive. So that's why there is always a pressure in the wild tiger population from the poachers and the illegal trade and trafficking. So that's why I think in Malaysia and even in Indonesia, people from the north, they are still going there and killing tigers and other endangered species. But in case of Malaysia, I think it is good that there is a new political commitment, that's coming up, and also they are also putting the enforcement agencies like the police and the army together, for these activities, because it's not only the tiger killing, but also the prey species, that are being trapped by these poachers, because they go into the forest for months. So they need to survive. They will, kill any kinds of animals. So Malaysia is trying to put their effort, so that, because again, now this Malaysian species, a different subspecies, so they feel pride on recovering this species. So there is some effort going on in there. Likewise in Indonesia, also in Sumatran Island, there is a, this is the second time that they are doing this island-wide survey. And, when I was there last year, I had a discussion with some of the, colleagues, that they are undertaking this survey, to do this genetic analysis also, because genetic science has become very handy these days, to add value to the survey that they are doing, in addition to the patch occupancy or whatever, traditional survey that they are doing. So Indonesia and Malaysia, they are putting their efforts, there. But in case of Myanmar, with this, the local conflicts that they have, like, for example, in Hukong Valley and others, where the main tiger concentration lies, there is some local conflict, between the government and the local tribes. I think that's really driving the poaching in a heightened level. So we really don't know what's happening. But at the same time, there is some hope. This is the Hukong Valley area, they're adjoining to in India and Burmese border. But again, with the local conflict, I think we don't know anything about. But this area in the west and east and southeast of Myanmar, along the border with Thailand, I think there is a real opportunity to revive tiger population in Myanmar and also Thailand, because in Thailand also in Western Forest Complex, that's the major focus of tiger population in Thailand, because there are several adjoining and interconnected protected areas, and and the government of Thailand and many conservation organizations are putting together a lot of effort in that area. And the good news is, they have also, reported some, breeding tiger population in the Eastern Forest Complex. They call it that's adjoining to, Laos and also, here in Cambodia. So there is a small population that has been recently reported, which was, never studied in the past. So, that's a good news. So, again, going back to this yellow figure in China, they are also putting a significant effort at least in northeast China, like in here, just along the border with Russia, because again, with the efforts and, from 2010, and also the position that they had, from the international community about the, demand, the market demand that they had. And I think, China is, trying to build their image at the international, level. So they are putting some significant effort there. But these 20 tigers, that they have reported, during a collaborative effort of tiger survey together with Russia, I think most of the tigers, that China has in that region is a transitional tiger. And they are not resident tigers because they come and go from the Russian side. And one interesting part is that China was the main source of tigers, that really repopulated in Russian side, in the Southeast Primorye and others in Russia. Russian Far East. But now, it has flipped the coin. Like, the Russia is, helping China to recover the tiger population here. So I hope the Chinese government will take it seriously and revive the tiger population, at least in the northeast China. Although China is the country which has almost all the subspecies that are found. Again, although the Southwest China subspecies, they are trying to recover there, but it's still, they don't have the necessary habitat to release those captive bred animals. It has been controversial, like Southwest China's, Chinese subspecies that they captively bred in South Africa and they wanted to release in China. But again, they have been working with the Chinese government, but unfortunately they did not find any suitable habitats, large enough suitable habitats. But what we were scared at the beginning is, like, if they release or reintroduce tiger in small animals, like a small habitat, like 150 square kilometer, that would be not enough, and it will be just like a safari park or something. So, and although the efforts that they are putting together is good, but not enough. So what I am saying is, if you see this red line here, in recent years, this is east of Mekong River, like in the countries Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam, they have not reported any wild tigers in recent years. So these three countries have lost all its tigers in the wild. So, which is unfortunate, and definitely there are some countries which are trying to revive their tigers, but again, there is a lot of issues that they have to deal with. Again, I have mentioned about the conservation efforts that's going in Thailand, and hopefully they will recover together with the Myanmar side, because this this is called the Tenasserim landscape. So this is adjoining, like again, between Thailand and Myanmar, and there are some protected areas along the Western Forest Complex in Thailand, which is the main concentration for tiger population. They are interconnected through the habitat in Myanmar. So for the recovery of tigers in Thailand itself, I think they need to collaborate with the Myanmar government, to have their tiger recovery, plan in place. So it's important that both of these countries work together. And also, there is also, like, I'm just talking about this, bilateral collaboration here. Like, Malaysia and Thailand, they're also trying to put together some, bilateral collaboration in this region, because, this is the new tiger population and tiger recovery effort that Malaysian government and some of the conservation organizations are putting together in the north of Malaysia. And also there is one, sanctuary in Thailand side, southern Thailand, that's Halapala, protected area. So they are working together so that they have a transboundary collaboration, for the tiger population recovery. And some of the bilateral, cooperation between, like, India, Nepal, and also in China, these are working, very well. I think, these countries are putting together the efforts in the best way possible. And likewise, I mentioned about this China and Russia. They also have this bilateral collaboration in tiger. And in terms of the international trade and trafficking, this ASEAN-WEN, ASEAN Wildlife Enforcement Network in Southeast Asian countries, and also the SAWEN in South Asian countries. And I think they are working well. They used to work well, but I don't hear much these days about the activities, because again, what I have noted is, and as long as they have an international support from international project, they are actively engaged. But now, since it is on the shoulder of their country's responsibility, I think they are lagging behind a little bit. But I think a little push is needed all the time, from the international community to bring this kind of effort forward. Okay, some reintroduction, like a process that they have started in various countries, like in India, like in 2005, when they reported that Pana and Shrestha tiger reserves, they have lost their tiger population completely. So but the Indian government really put a significant effort, to show as a model to rest of the tiger range countries, and Pana Tiger Reserve has been a very, very successful model there, for the tiger recovery, from a few tigers, they must have, by now they must have 50 or more tigers in there. And Shrestha Tiger Reserve is slowly picking up in tiger recovery. So these models can be applied elsewhere in the countries that are trying to revive their tiger population. In Kazakhstan, that used to be the historical range for the Caspian tiger. And in 2010 Tiger Summit in St. Petersburg, Russia, the Kazakhstan representative from the Kazakhstan were also there. So the Russian government and Kazakhstan government, they had a bilateral agreement for the recovery of tiger population in Kazakhstan. So, and also incidentally, the Caspian tiger and Amur tiger, they are closely related genetically. So, and the Russian government, they committed to to give away some tigers if they recover the habitat first. So there is a lot of efforts going on in this in the Ili Delta of Lake Balkhash, which that area was found to be suitable for the reintroduction. And right now, the habitat recovery, activity is going on. The prey population is being added there, and so it is still being, it's still a work in progress, and it will take a few more years to, to introduce the tigers there. In Cambodia, again, the last tiger was seen here in the eastern plain of Cambodia, here, and there were two areas, that the government of Cambodia and the conservation organization identified. This is eastern plain, and there is also this cardamom habitat in this area in the southwestern part of Cambodia, but it looks more like this eastern plain, like in Mandalkiri areas, that looks more suitable for tiger reintroduction rather than cardamom mountains. So there has been a lot of effort that went on for the recovery of habitat and prey population recovery there, but the major setback that many organizations has felt is the serious commitment from the government there. So despite all the effort, there is also what I have learned, from the WWF here in the US, they do have the, funding assurance, from some, foundation, for the, recovery of tiger, in Cambodia, if there is a strong commitment from the government. But again, because there is no commitment there, so the funding is still lying. I don't know how long that will be available there. So it is there is a lot of effort that is in place from various organizations. But again, the serious commitment has still to come from the government to launch any real reintroduction plan. Okay, talking about the current threat to tiger conservation, and what I see, as I mentioned earlier, is I see that there is a gradual loss of level of commitment, political commitment in the tiger range countries that we witnessed, as a follow-up from the 2010 Tiger Summit, and which needs to be revived again. And the continued direct killing of tigers and their prey, because of the persistent market demand. These are major, threat to tigers. In addition to the habitat loss, due to the land conversion and also the infrastructure development. that's going on. Fortunately, many of the countries like Malaysia, which led this process, and Thailand, has also shown out some of the, like models for a wildlife-friendly infrastructure development. And now India and Nepal and like Russia, they are stepping up as well in the development of this infrastructure that are wildlife-friendly, because there is a lot of damage that has caused because many of the engineers and also the public works department and infrastructure development agencies that ignored the necessity of these large mammals in landscape species like tigers and elephants that needs to cross through this landscape and many of them were killed by the road accident and others. So it is good that governments are stepping up, but at the same time we need to do more on this. And same thing, because of this, infrastructure development, ignoring all this wildlife movement, all the corridors and connectivity, that has been lost, and it has caused tremendous loss of the population and also the ecological, imbalance, among the population. In the human-wildlife conflict, that is also, one of the big challenges. But what I have noted recently is, for example, because, I worked in Bangladesh also on a USAID project that we collaborated with a local NGO there and also the forest department. For example, in case of Sundarban there, that's the main concentration of tigers in Bangladesh. The wildlife conflict issues, the rate of wildlife conflict has reduced tremendously. So that is also one of the indicators of the, reduction of population size. So definitely we conducted some camera trap surveys along the, all across the Sundarban and along the border with India as well. So there are some concentration, very variable concentration of tigers in the Sundarban of Bangladesh. So the forest department over there is working to recover tiger population all across. So there are still some studies going on for this. And also if we don't equip our protected area management team to address the human wildlife conflict immediately, there will be a retaliatory measure, and also will be losing the trust from the local community, because it becomes an economic liability for them. So addressing this human wildlife conflict the measures that needs to be in place, so that we will continue to win the trust of community, and at the same time the community the engagement, not only getting the support from the community in the conservation, but also what do they get out of their efforts in conservation, that also need to be ensured. Because in many instances there are some level of efforts that has to come from the community, because they lose their crops, their livestock, some of their relatives, that needs to be considered, so that they need to reap some of the benefits, and they need to see some value for their efforts in conservation. And all this infrastructure, equipment, capacity, and resources that needs to be built in the protected area management, because in many instances, in many tiger reserves, they are not well equipped, and they don't have the necessary resources and capacity to address any kind of tiger conservation or any kind of big cat conservation issues. So that has to be addressed adequately. And some of the disease that we have studied in Bangladesh, that still that reports has to come out. We have also noticed some of the diseases like the canine distemper virus, that we have noted, because in many instances the tiger come across interacting with humans, human settlements, and particularly dogs. And because the first time the canine distemper virus was detected in Russia, where the tigers over there, Amur tigers, they come frequently, with across dogs. So and then later on, when people started studying CDV in other countries, they have also noted, and also in some instances in India. And now with this challenging situation that we all are in with the COVID-19, there are some report of tiger being infected in New York Zoo, and not only the tiger but also some lions and other big cats, and they were infected, and we don't know yet what are the consequences, what are the repercussions of this infection to tiger population in the wild. And just talking about this COVID-19, the toll, that is, it has taken like 8.3 million people have been infected worldwide, and nearly 500,000 people are dead. And it's because, and also trillions of dollars of economic loss because of the lockdown, and also other losses, and no economic activities. So this didn't have to happen if we all were aware of the threats, from the zoonotic disease, and if we had necessary control measures to address all this illegal trade and trafficking. So, again, this economic loss and loss of human lives, that is there, in addition to the biodiversity loss and consequences of the disturbance to the economic ecosystem equilibrium, because we all need to learn that these ecosystem services that we are gaining, from the, like a natural habitat, that is so valuable to us. And I hope that this COVID-19 pandemic has made us to learn some lesson about the ecological system and the ecosystem services that we are in, and also the natural resource, and also the climate change that that we are dealing with. And we don't know about during this COVID-19, our focus is really diverted to address this pandemic. And since there is still persistent transnational trade on big cats, so we don't know yet how things are happening at that end, because we are all locked down, we're indoors, so we don't know what is happening. But there has been a huge demand on the parts and products, bones and pelts, from all kinds of big cats. And the good news is, like the China has banned the trade of this pangolin, which is good news. And I hope these will expand to other species as well, because this zoonotic disease, the risk of zoonotic disease, will be there as long as there will be illegal trade and trafficking on wild animals. And again, like COVID-19 infection on tiger in the New York zoos, and we don't know how things are going on in the wild population. And also the during the lockdown situation, attributed to this COVID-19 pandemic, there's a huge loss of revenue, to the parks and also the local community, because there is no tourism activities going on. So, these are some of the impact that I see, to the tiger and other big cat population from the COVID-19. Okay, a little bit about the moving forward. Definitely, some level of success has achieved in South Asian TRCs and Russia, but more has to be done. If we are serious about this doubling the tiger population by the next year of the tiger, and if we don't succeed in doubling the tigers, but at least increasing or retaining the tiger population that we have in that itself, it would be a huge achievement. And additional efforts has to be required in Southeast Asian countries. Definitely Thailand, Malaysia are putting their efforts to the best, but other TRCs, needs to come up, step up, and also the support from the international community is crucial on this. And and we also need to prepare for the next year of the tiger in 2022, assessing the success and failures, that we have so far since 2010, and from all these learnings, what we need to do, that we need to assess, and definitely once we are out of this COVID-19 pandemic, we need to gear up, because it will require a lot of effort to bring all these international and tiger range countries together, to have that same level of political commitment, on tigers or any other big cat conservation. So we really need to gear up our efforts. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. I have so many questions, but tell us about what is being planned for the Year of the Tiger. What are you planning for that?
Okay, what I was telling you is, definitely some, international organizations are trying to put together, their efforts, on this, for the next Tiger Summit. And last year, when I was in New Delhi, the delegates from the Russia, they again offered to host the next Tiger Summit again in Vladivostok in 2022. Definitely we don't have any big organization like the World Bank this time, but it is really driven by the Tiger Range country, and the Global Tiger Forum is taking the lead on this. And there was an effort to host a ministerial meeting in Malaysia last April, which didn't happen because of all this COVID-19 pandemic. So probably, once we are out of this pandemic, probably, we'll have, this kind of activities launched in range countries. But at the same time, there is an effort, that needs to be placed, so that all the conservation organizations, they need to come together to reinforce this conservation effort again.
Fantastic. Okay, so tell me a little bit more about the Smithsonian Institute and its work on the tiger. Is that big tiger monitoring project in Nepal still continuing?
No, actually, the tiger monitoring program, that is started in Nepal in 1970s, that was geared from like a Smithsonian institution at that time with radio color and others, that was the first time that really brought about the ecological behavior of tigers in the rest of the world. But again, later on, they thought that, it has to be transferred to a local entity. That's how this, then King Mahendra Trust came about, because, they needed some local entity to continue this monitoring. And then, definitely the Smithsonian Institution is still interested to continue that kind of support. But at the same time, like in those days, the Smithsonian Institution is not equally resourced like that in those days. So provided the opportunity, I think they are still willing to provide that kind of support in monitoring and also the local capacity building in all the tiger range countries.
So what happened to the King Mahendra Trust? What work is it doing now?
Well, again, they do have the field presence in all the tiger reserves in Nepal. They have the necessary wildlife technician. They provide the support, to the national park management. For example, when I was talking about this, equipping the protected area management to address these human-tiger conflict issues immediately, so that there is no hue and cry, and there is no significant loss to the local community. So this kind of support is provided by the now it is the National Trust for Nature Conservation, NTNC. So they are providing this kind of support in all the technical support. And for example, all the big organizations like WWF, JDSL and others, they bring the international support like the funding and others, but the NTNC, they do have the field resources and the wildlife technician to provide all kinds of support. So all this monitoring and other activities are being supported by the NTNC. But again, I think, more would be better on this all the time.
Okay, great. So tell me, do you also have like a public outreach program planned for 2022 for the Year of the Tiger? Is there anything specific that you are talking about right now?
Well, definitely we are again, trying to, collaborate with all the organization, that are, leading this process. And also, I have been in constant touch with the WWF US, WCS, and others, and they also have a small program at the World Bank, related to wildlife trade and trafficking. So, I'm also reaching out to them, to seek their help, and also the kind of efforts that they had offered us in the past. I think if we can get some level of support, that would be great. And I think we still need to reach out to some international organization which has the same level of influence like the World Bank, for the next Year of the Tiger as well. And definitely, through this, awareness and other communication, because again, what I have noted is the kind of activities that, organizations like Global Tiger Forum and others are putting together, that has to be shared widely, so that other organizations can also step forward, to help in this effort.
Fantastic. Thank you. I think this has been really, really interesting. Time and time again, there's been this whole talk. We had a talk earlier about how snares are being used in forests in Cambodia and Myanmar, and that's really what is damaging tigers now, and how it's not really for tigers that the snares are being put on, but it's like they're getting affected by all of this. So when tigers are killed in places like this, and it's a big impact on a sudden population decline, what is it that an organization such as yours can do to influence the government to change their attitude towards what's happening?
Well, actually, Smithsonian Conservation Biology Institute, it is much more, geared toward, capacity building, training people, and also bringing the collaborators together, and bridging the gaps between the, particular area management and also the high-level government, so that they can communicate, they can understand each other's, what is needed on the ground, and what, the top-level government policymakers can provide the support. And regarding all this snaring and the others, again, institutional capacity building, and also the commitment that is needed, from the government, that has to be in place, And for example, the snaring is very deadly in many countries, in Indonesia, when they are conducting this island-wide survey, they are detecting so much of snares. And definitely the local people also put the snares, to target some of the prey species like the wild pig and the deers that come to raid their crops. But non-targeted species like tiger also fall into that snare and they get killed. And so some of this illegal trade and traffickers, and they are always actively engaged with the local community. If there something happens, they get all these tiger parts and others. So that has to be stopped. And more so is the demand reduction, although we have been talking about this, but again, without the strong political commitment that we get, I think that's not going to happen. Just educating people simply doesn't work. Definitely, educating and also engaging the local people and making them aware of the status of tigers and the role of ecosystem, the role of tigers in balance the ecosystem is important. But at the same time, some level of enforcement is necessary to take, to bring the change about this. So, these kind of activities that, Smithsonian is very much interested in. And also we have been reaching out to the tiger range countries, to have their training institution, in each of the countries, so that there is a real effort, because the administration and the protected area management team, they changed they because of the transfer and then also new recruits and others. This training and capacity building has to be a continual effort, so that again building the local capacity, and they can take the charge, and there will be a continuous effort on this area.
So Mahendra, another thing that's come up during these conversations is the use of technology for conservation. And of course, we benefited from the availability of satellite remote sensing, satellite data for radio tracking, GIS and modeling. But one of the areas that people are not being able to make a headway on is the use of things like thermal imaging, which would help us track, purely because of government resistance and the feeling that this is a security issue, and not allowing conservationists to use these technologies even though it's available. Have you had any dialogue about the use of things like thermal imaging, AI, stuff that we could do in the field to really help conservation with governments, and to get them to agree to this?
Well, yes, for example, let me bring an example of, Bangladesh, because, we were trying to figure out, the methods to estimate tiger population and also prey population over there in the Sundarban, because of the mangrove forest. It was really challenging to really cover the area with camera trap and other methods. So we were thinking about using the thermal imaging, using the drones and others, and we also, talked with the NASA here, because they were also working in the various parts of Bangladesh, and they were equally interested, and we reached out to the forest department there. They were also interested, but this thermal imaging and also flying drones, along the border and others, that is always considered a sensitive issues. So we definitely discussed a lot about this, but we could not get through on this. And so definitely there are various tools and technology that is available, and some of the countries are trying to adopt this and apply this method. For example, in Malaysia, because they were shortage of manpower, so to have a real enforcement capacity in their protected area, they really wanted to use the drones. And also the protected area, the terrain that they have, mountainous terrain, the people really could not cover much. So they were trying to use drones, but again, and this is the area where we can, like Smithsonian Institution and others, really can influence and also bring this new science and technology, to help them out. Yes. So we really work with them and on this, but again, later on, it didn't materialize again. That was really unfortunate. So, but at the same time, right now, what they have done in Malaysia is partnering with the police and army. I think, they are, conducting sweeping operation and others. That will also help, if not on the field, but psychologically, with this, to the poachers and others, I think, that would be very effective. But at the same time, like the, the recent AI and others, that has to be used. Some, organizations are really trying hard, to bring about this technology and also convince the government, and we are with them, we are working with them. But again, this, we need to step up, and all the organizations, they need to come up with some convincing idea, like that we can put together to the government, so that we can really launch these kind of efforts.
So the other area that I've been really interested in, besides the use of technology, is also doing intensive training on the ground to make wildlife departments and forest departments go completely green in the approach to conservation. In India, still we use concrete buildings, and there's a dependence on pulling a power line in, so change to greener technologies. And since we have, ecocentric architecture, we have solar power and alternate energy, actually changing what is happening within parks to becoming more green. Because I think in a lot of cases, just making a tarred road in the middle of a national park is a problem when we do have means to, stabilize soil and not do a tarred road. So things like that. I mean, have you actually thought about all of this, and are we actually going to be addressing some of these issues when 2022 comes up, or even earlier?
I think this is a very good idea. I like this, and definitely, we need to come up with some solution, because some population living beyond this parks and reserves, they also need to get access to all the electricity and all the tools and technology. For example, I remember this issue that has happened in Chitwan National Park in Nepal, like the Madhi Valley. As you know, all across this Chitwan National Park, they don't have the electricity. And also the contest, like that went on in building this road, like a short span of road, connecting this Madhi Valley with the rest of the, populated area in Chitwan. That is heavily contested, because again, if the National Parks Authority allowed to build the, tarred road, there, we'll definitely bisect the population, because, that goes through the major concentration of tigers and the elephants and other animals there. So, at one hand, we need to provide this access to the, community of the Madhi Valley, but at the same time, how do we deal with that? Probably we can build some kind of corridor and something kind of high rise, elevated highway and others. And also the electricity, they have the, all the power poles, in that Madhi Valley, but no electric supply, But again, with this new technology of solar power and others, I think, that could be one of the solutions. But, like what I see is, although this technology is being slowly taken over or adopted, but it has not widely undertaken as an alternate solution. But for example, in community like the Madhi Valley and others, if we can have this solar power energy, I think they will be happy, and we don't need to pull a power line across the Chitwan National Park. So this kind of alternative has to be addressed in the next year of the tiger, and as we have discussion with all the political leaders, and this will require some additional resources, definitely, there is no doubt, but the initial investment will pull up for a long term.
Yeah, there are ways and ways of doing this. So, I've been thinking about this, and one is that when the government comes in with the policy, you implement the policy and the benefits national park boundary outwards. So the people living immediately on the boundary are the first benefiters. So they feel that they have got something special by the dint of the fact that they're living on the edge of the national park, even though it is just what the government has decided for the whole country. Do you understand? So even if they get it 1 year earlier than people 10 kilometers away from the park, it's just an incentive to that they got it earlier. The other thing would be to talk to everybody who has a tourism operation and get everybody to sponsor X amount of solar energy in one of these spaces. And I think today everybody would be willing to do that, because it's something very positive, and they can actually say they are doing this, very, very easily. Even if it's 2 houses, everybody will do a little bit and it all adds up to something else. So I think these are 2 areas that I have always maintained are really important: technology and going green. And I think there are 2 more things on your agenda. Yeah. Coming to Nepal, I was discussing with Dr. Shivraj Bhatta today that you just had a terrible setback because this was the year of tourism in Nepal, and it just totally wiped out. But given the fact that your country is the one that actually gave us the Bible on tiger conservation. It was the first project that happened, and the first documents and the first papers and the first studies came out of your country, maybe 2022 needs to be the year of wildlife tourism in Nepal.
Yes, definitely. I think, there's a lot of effort that's going on, but at the same time, one point, that you have touched upon a little bit, like how the tourism, definitely, it will support the economy of the country. But in addition to that, how the tourism benefits can be, driven to the local community as well.
Yes.
Because in most of the instances, the big business people from the big cities, they have a huge investment in around the protected areas. They run the tourism business, and all these people, local community, they rarely reap any kind of benefit. So that has, I think, the benefit the local people can derive, from this tourism or any other activities, from the conservation, and attaching that to or linking that to their livelihood. That's really important, and that we need to really put our effort on that.
Absolutely. So let's continue to work on this. We'll stay in touch and share some more ideas and see where we get to with all of this. Thanks, Mahendra. Thank you for a really, really interesting talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Latika and Chaitanya, for organizing this and putting all of us together, discussing about this.
And human beings and wild animals have always been in conflict. And if they live together, they will stay in conflict.